This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor Jon Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
We were talking before we came on the air. I was asking about your colors, getting your colors done, the trend that is the colors. And
yes.
Your wife and your girls have had it done. I haven't had it done, and now I feel like I'm missing out.
You are missing out. Like, it's such a big deal to have your colors done. Like, what my wife discovered was, even though most people generally would not say that they love the color brown, but it is no joke. My wife looks better in a dark brown, like a chocolate, than she does in a black, because she has her colors done. Same thing with the girls. The girls love, like, girly, soft, flowy pinks.
Yeah.
But they don't look as good on them. But then when they wear some colors that have a little bit of pink to it, like when they were like a navy with like a bold pink, they look fabulous. And so, because their colors are done. Now, being a ginger is different.
No, I was thinking about colors as in the changing colors that are on their way, because believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, we are very close on the cusp of autumn, and it's a slippery slope.
And then I know we're already more than halfway through the year.
I know.
And then we have the last couple months, or last several months, I guess. But it seems like it goes so much more quickly when you're in that second half of the year.
It does. And the conversation around what can we do at the end of the year is an important one. We're going to talk about the whole what should you do now at the mid-year checkup point. I want to ask you about that coming up this hour. If you wanted to do a mid-year review on your savings, or maybe you haven't done a mid-year review on your savings, what you should do, what you should look for, we're going to talk about that. As you're listening, if you've got questions for Jon and his team about your investments, about your setup, wanting to do a mid-year checkup, you can reach out to us. We can begin that conversation with you. 502-317-0840 is the number to dial. You can call or send a text to 502-317-0840. Let's go down the path of the conversation around the Fed and interest rates, because there is a new Federal Reserve Chair, Kevin Warsh. He recently held interest rates steady, Jon, but not everyone agrees that it's going to be enough to get inflation where the Fed wants it. This is investment manager Jeffrey Gundlach on CNBC.
He has basically defined failure for this Fed of not getting to 2%. And so if you really want to get to 2%, I think you have to raise interest rates. Getting 2% is going to take a long time. We might not get there over the course of the next couple of years. But if that's really what you're focused on, then I think you have to start raising rates.
So, all right, a couple of things, and I'm going to let you unpack a little bit what he said there, Jon. If inflation does stay above where the Fed wants it to be, where the Fed is targeting, what does it mean for folks that you're working with, retirees, those building long-term income plans? What do we need to know?
Yeah, so there's a positive side of rates staying higher for longer,
right?
And there's a huge negative, right? So the first thing that I want to say is that Warsh did not change rates because it was not even close to unanimous. There were 3 Fed board governors who basically said, no, we think we should raise rates today. Like, no joke. Like, this was one of the most contentious Fed meetings that they've had in a while as far as what people think and what they feel. This is not political preferencing on any side. Some people said, oh my gosh, inflation's so expensive. Inflation's moving up so much. We need to get the tiger by the tail, or it can potentially take off again and had what we had during the last administration, where inflation was running almost double digits in some places. There's a lot of things going on. But having said that, it can be a huge good thing for some retirees that need fixed income planning, right? Need fixed income investments to produce their income. Guys, one of the biggest things to understand is there is no retirement if we don't have income coming in. That's it. It is almost income is the outcome of a successful retirement. It does not get more simplistic than that. And everything else that is really good sage advice on the economy or on investments or on portfolios is tertiary. It's second to the idea that if you got income coming in, you're fine. And think about it. I mean, my grandfather was a perfect case scenario of this. He had 3 different pensions when he passed away. He had a federal pension from the Department of Defense, he had a state pension from the Corps of Engineers, and he had Social Security. Those 3 things alone gave my grandfather nearly $10,000 a month coming in, no matter what. Now, if you have $10,000 coming in every single month, does it matter if you really have any money in your checking account? I mean, honestly, no, because what happens the very next month? You get 10 grand, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not complicated. So if you spend less than that, then you should be fine. That's not how most of us have it happening, right? We get Social Security. If we're fortunate enough to have a pension at all, that's great. But most of us are forced to pull money from our savings, from our portfolios, from our IRAs, from our 401ks, blah, 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 blah. And we can use income for that. So higher rates mean higher interest rates that we can earn from the bank.
Okay.
Here's the problem.
Yeah.
Most of it is going to pay for the very things we have to live.
Right.
Electricity bills, gasoline, car insurance, medical insurance, all those things, even if we don't have a mortgage anymore. All those other things add up and suck out all that extra earnings that we were getting from those CDs and bank notes and things like that, right? Mm-hmm. So to be higher for longer, here's where it comes into a planner's perspective, like when I'm looking at it, when my guys are looking at everything. The biggest fear is that prices keep moving up a lot. And we did not make the right assumption on someone's portfolio. And here's the thing. If you've been retired since, let's say, right before 2022, because 2022 is when interest rates started moving up and they've stayed up for a while. If you, prior to 2022, if you retired, chances are your inflation expectations in your accounts are really low. And the amount of income that you can create was probably not very good because you're expecting low inflation. That can absolutely devastate a retirement portfolio in every possible way, because it means that you're assuming that interest rates are going to always be more than that inflation rate. Well, if you have bonds or bond funds in your portfolio that have not done very well, but you still have a 4.5%, 5% inflation rate, guys, and you wanted to live off 4%, that's nearly an 8 to a 9% distribution. Well, there's not that many portfolios that I see that can handle an 8 or a 9% hit every year between inflation and income, or you're going to run out of money. It is a big deal. So if you have not done a proper new, and I'm talking new since 22, so we're talking the last 3.5 to 4 years, if you have not done a new income design or look at what your assumptions are, unfortunately, it could get really ugly really soon. So what are the things that we can do? The first thing to understand is 2% inflation that Jeffrey Gundlach was talking about, that is pie in the sky. That just cannot even get remotely close to happening anytime soon. Okay. He was talking a couple years.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
But we currently have the Trump administration who wants more than anything to reduce rates.
Yeah.
Why? Because right now the housing industry is really messed up because people don't want to sell houses. They don't want to buy houses because interest rates are high. They're expensive.
Yeah.
Historically, they're not terrible, but no one wants to move houses around.
Everybody got spoiled from what happened, 3 or 4 years ago? Was it
absolutely
when the interest rates went real low?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we had a property that we still 2.75%.
Yeah.
30-year, fixed rate.
To know you have a mortgage rate that low.
we will never, I just say, I don't think I will ever see those numbers. Yeah. Right. Again in my life. And so when you think about that, can you afford to get rid of a property that carries that kind of loan? Maybe, maybe not. Yeah. But the main thing is Gundlach says a couple of years. Well, that's all going to shuffle around because no matter what, no matter how great someone loves the Trump administration or they hate it, doesn't make any difference. There's only 2 years left. Potentially, right? Well, not even potentially. There's only 2 years left because after that, someone else gets in office, whether it's someone on that side or the other side. It almost is irrelevant. So that's the thing to understand. So when we have to worry about that, inflation's going to be running probably pretty hot for a while. That is sucking up all that money that your portfolio is earning. Now, the insult to injury there is that the markets are still very elevated. They're still very expensive. It does not mean they drop from here, but it does mean when you're pulling out money because inflation is high, and you do not have the market cooperating very much, that can absolutely be disastrous for most people. So the big thing to understand here is that especially when the people that make the rates, when they don't agree, you better plan on both sides in your portfolio. You better plan on what happens if rates go up and what happens if they go down. If you do not have that double hedge in your portfolio, you could be very uncomfortable down the road. Okay. So that's number one. And that's the thing that we're always looking for in a mid-season or a mid-year review.
Okay.
The second thing is that if we do have higher rates because of inflation for longer, it changes the retirement math completely. It absolutely changes the retirement math. So if your assumptions, like I mentioned earlier, were built on old numbers, you can run out of money much quicker than you would think, or you're going to be very uncomfortable in retirement, which is an easy fix. But you have to get your assumptions right, and you have to look at what strategies can keep up with those assumptions. They may not be the ones that got you here in the first place. CDs stand for Certificate of Depreciation. No matter what they're paying, guys, the bank establishes those numbers that they pay you based on inflation rates. So if you have a CD, great. You may be safe from having the market hurt you, but you're losing money safely. Not great. So you have to find alternatives to that. Okay. And lastly, inflation is not a headline. It is your life. When rates and prices keep moving up, your cost to live and exist in this world goes up with it. If you're not rising with it, that means that we're just not living the way we want. All three of these things are very easy to fix, but none of them can be accomplished without a solid, mathematically based plan that looks at all of it. Not just investments, not just at income, but looks at all of it, including taxes and wealth transfer. If you don't get that right, guys, it'll be very uncomfortable. What Gunlock is saying, what the Fed is doing right now should give us a brief moment to pause and say, what are my choices from here? That's what we should all do today.
So we've officially passed the halfway point of the year. Financially, there is actually work to be done. You listening to us on WHAS today, lean in. Have you reviewed your savings, your portfolio at all this year or at all in the last couple of years? A lot of people look at financial review processes as a kind of an end of year task, but you might be looking at it incorrectly, and seizing the opportunity of the time that we have right now is what I want you to highlight for radio listeners right now, John.
Yeah.
So somebody's in their 50s or 60s. What are a few things that we should be doing now in a mid-year checkup?
Yeah, so it's so weird, and I don't know why we're programmed this way. I think that most people are programmed at the end of a year. You know, it's kind of the years happen after Christmas, after the holidays. Everyone wants to think about their finances at the beginning of the year. I don't know why it is. Everyone does that. That's when all the clients, they all call and whatever, and they always say, hey, how did we do last year? Da, da, da. Here's the amazing thing. What I love reviews around this time of year.
Really?
I really do, because there's time to do something about things that are going on in the world. And halfway through a year, you kind of see the trajectory. You kind of see the pattern. You kind of see what's going on, right? So the president gets out and it says a lot of things. We're going to drop a lot of bombs, going to do some of this, some of that, hookah, talk to a lot of people, and we're going to have a lot of volatility. Okay, well, that's happened for 6 months. And then now the narrative now is like, okay, what's going to happen towards the end of the year? Are interest rates going to go up or go down? Where's the market been thus far? Does it still have that momentum, or does it look like shifting? When it comes to taxes, now that, because a lot of laws change in a year, but no one knows how to really adjust and deal with those laws until a good period of time later. So the 2025 tax law changes that Congress put in, at the beginning of this year, we didn't really have good guidance on what that was going to look like. Now, we can see a tremendous difference in things that can be done when it comes to taxes. So I love mid-year assessments. This is the best time to do annual reviews, in my opinion, because we can now make meaningful changes, potentially, or realize we don't need to make any changes, meaningful changes, and we have the whole second half of the year to do those things, right?
Okay.
So this being a midterm election year, I like it even more, because it allows us to say, wow, what happens if interest rates go up? But are we still prepared if interest rates go down, right? And what am I talking about? Well, for most of us in our portfolios, that change is bonds. If you have any bond funds in your portfolio, chances are they will behave completely differently if interest rates actually go up, which is what the Fed chief was talking about maybe, or if they go down, which is what people anticipated. But it is not unanimous. As a matter of fact, not being unanimous, 3 Fed board governors said we need to raise rates today. So it's not unanimous that rates are going to go up or down. Here's my point. If the people that make these decisions can't agree, what's going on in your portfolio? Because if we don't know, if we don't have it assessed, it's probably going to cost us money. And I was talking to a client that came in a couple weeks ago, Heather, and I was just thinking about it. And he was just like, John, do we really need to come do this review? It's the summer, we don't have the end of the year stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the perfect time to do it. We got time to change things or to put some things in place. We got half a year to do it. This is fabulous.
Yeah.
When we went through it, he said, but how much difference could it make? And I'm like, and I asked the question, if you don't mind me asking, he's not fully retired yet. He said, I was like, what do you get paid per hour? And he said, man, I got a good job. I make a couple $100 an hour. I was like, what if you could get a couple $1,000 an hour? He goes, whoa, now I'm willing to listen. I was like, right. Most of our annual reviews are 25 minutes to an hour, and very rarely can we not find a couple little changes to make that would put thousands of dollars in a client's pocket. Not because we're smarter, because we're actually doing the things that everyone gives lip service to, but they don't implement it. What we're talking about is we know the tax law changes. Now we get a pretty good gauge of what your income is going to be like this year. Now we can see if you're on path for that bonus. And by the way, If you get that bonus, it changes your tax strategy. It does, because you get more money. Do we need to defer that? Do we need to put it in something else? Do we need to take income from other areas and safeguard those? See, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Thousands of dollars. Now, here's the interesting thing. How often do you call your CPA in the middle of summer? Let me guess, never. Unless you get a letter from the...
They're sitting there by the phone. Nobody wants to talk to them. April 15th came and went. Now they're just sitting there waiting for somebody to pay attention to them.
Most CPAs that I know have places in Florida or Mexico or the Caribbean, and they are sipping on Mai Tais and pina coladas, and they are listening to Kenny Chesney, and they are having a great time because they know what happens come the second week of January, going all the way through often April or May. They are in the third level of Dante's Inferno. Dante's Inferno was another thing that he basically called hell. That's where they are, and they got to deal with that. So this time of year, they are not doing any of that work. Our office often is, because we're the ones saying, wow, these tax law changes, now that we have true guidance, we can see how these affect. Now that we have half a year to do some real work, let's do that. And we're often talking thousands. So what can you do mid-year? Put thousands of dollars in your pocket or save those by getting the right information. If you don't have a guy that does that, give my people a call. That's what our team does. They're looking for little, small changes that can make a major impact over time. And no, we're not talking you're going to save $100,000 tomorrow. We're talking about, man, if you made little, small changes for the next 10 years, you may have hundreds of thousands of dollars more money by doing it mid-season. So there's the big thing. Don't let the middle of the year, the summer doldrums, take effect on when we should be doing our best planning. All right, that's number one.
Okay.
Number two, cash. There are more people sitting on hordes of cash than I've seen in a long time. Now, here's the thing. Some of that's good if we're worried about the market. But guys, cash right now, people have more cash than they need to do anything with. You can deploy that. Interest rates are still very high. They're still very strong. There are all kinds of ways where you don't have to sit in cash, but you can have cash style alternatives that will do a few things. Potentially safeguard you from taxes, potentially defer or eliminate taxes. How great would that be? But with that extra cash, or secondarily, you can put yourself in a great position. If the markets do go through the roof from here, you can make a pretty good amount on the upside. If the markets go down into the dumpster from here, you may not have any losses at all, or you can control how much you're down. Cash right now is one of my least favorite investments if it's more than, let's say, 10% of your portfolio. I talked to a couple weeks ago, and they came in and they were sitting on $800,000 in cash on a $1.1 million portfolio.
Oh, geez.
And all I asked was, hey, that's fine. I get it. Are you worried about something? Are you nervous?
Yeah.
Did you just sell a property and you don't know what to do with that property yet? I'm like, no, John, the market's been going up and we've been nervous about that. And so because of that, we went to cash and we've just been there. Well, here's the thing, Heather, if they had been in really good money market funds or cash alternatives that pay a little bit more, like paid 3.5%, 4.25%, 4.5%, I wouldn't have had an issue. They had it in their Fidelity account paying less than 0.37%. They were leaving all that money on the table. By the way, if you just get normal money market rates on $800,000, that's over $30,000 a year. That's not what they were getting. They were getting less than $3,000 a year.
Yeah.
That's a $27,000 change in that person's situation because they hadn't looked at it. They hadn't looked at it and paid attention to the fact that, whoa, I know I got a lot of cash, but what am I getting paid on that? Not enough. So cash right now, look at it. Understand, if you do not have a strategy, if you do not have a clear strategy for what to do with that cash, either now or at a future date, if there becomes an opportunity, then unfortunately, you do not have a proper written investment plan. You need that. That's how people get wealthy and stay wealthy in the long run, a written plan that they stick with, right? So if we're just using our gut check to feel that, oh, I'm going to have this money in cash, or I'm going to buy all this in SpaceX, and now I'm going to pull that out, and I'm going to put all this in NVIDIA or Apple. Guys, those are not sage advice things to do. We want to make certain that we get it right. Cash right now is causing one of the biggest issues because, number one, we can mitigate taxes on it. Number two, we can make it work better for us. And the last one, RMDs, required minimum distributions. Whether you already have to take them or you got them coming up in a period of time, this is where you want to plan for those suckers because this is what will derail even the best financial plans. You heard me. Even the best financial plans, if you do not have a tax strategy to go along with it. RMDs are one of the causes of people going into a higher tax bracket in retirement than the one that they were in and they were working. You have to plan for that. If nothing else, if the one thing you have not done is look, how do your RMDs affect you now or when you start taking them? And how many years will they affect you? When you see how our CPAs and tax attorneys, when they go through those numbers, it will change your idea forever on having to pull out money from your accounts, because it made my eyes pop in a way that I haven't seen in a very long time. So we want to make sure mid-year review, this is not the time to get, caught up in the summer doldrums or be sad about the fact that the cold weather's coming or happy.
It's actually a great time. There's nothing going on usually in August. It's hot outside. Like I said, the vacations have been winding down. Like, carpe this summer lull moment before the frenzy of the fall and holidays hit.
When you start to hear the college snare drums kicking off football season and the roar of the crowd. Yeah, do that roar now, though, while things get really kicked off, because I would much rather you be paying attention to football than finances when the football is actually happening.
I think that I speak on behalf of almost everybody listening to us on WHAS when I say same. Yes, I would rather be paying attention to football and Rotel Dip and all those other good things than worrying about what's my tax strategy. So let's knock it out now. Now is the time. We've just passed the mid-year mark. Take the bull by the horns. John and his team are here to help you do that with a mid-year checkup of your own. 502-317-0840. Give us a call right now. We've got a teammate standing by ready to answer your call, help you schedule a time on the calendar, or you can send a text to that same number. Just text the word PLAN to 502-317-0840. We're going to send you a link to our calendar, and you can just schedule your time right there from your smartphone. 502-317-0840 is that number to dial. Call or text the word PLAN. You can also go to the website. It's retirementsolutionradio.com. Let's get to work on your mid-year checkup. This is a no-fee, no-obligation review, just empowering you with information about your money. 502-317-0840.
Listen, whether it's your first time or your fifth time at my show, I'm going to treat y'all just like I treat my family. I really will. I'm going to start a group text with you in it. I'm going to start a second one without you. Then I'm going to talk about you in the wrong group text. You ever do that? Send a text about somebody, but you forget they're in that text. I sent a text to my mom, my sister about my brother. I'm like, ugh, he's so annoying. Then my brother responds, who's annoying? Dad.
Angela Johnson Reyes. If you are not familiar with her, look her up. She is hilarious because everything she talks about is real life. Like, that's very real. I'm in the middle of this, John. You and I were talking about how I'm planning my mom's 80th birthday, and Absolutely. I have several text threads going, and everybody's got their one favorite cousin.
Sure.
That you can really just get into it with. And I was saying to my cousin, I was like, I am deleting this entire thread. Once I get this party figured out, I have to delete. In fact, I'm probably just going to throw out my phone, change my number. The stuff that she and I have said about our family members on this thread is not for anybody else to see.
And I can 100% relate to exactly what the comedian was just saying about, the threads. I have some where our family's on it, and we don't have a huge family, but still you got like 12 or 13, people on there, and enough. I will be black. I mean, it amazes me when people will say something. It's like, oh my gosh. Luckily, thank goodness, I very rarely, if ever, respond to anything on these threads.
All right. Smart.
I'm just, kept in the loop, if you will.
That's right.
But the thing is, I was like, oh my gosh, did they not realize that she's on there? Did they not realize that he's on there?
Right.
And then they were like, oh, footed mouth. And I'm like, yeah, maybe a little bit. But that's just family, right?
Technology.
Family dynamics.
Technology will bite you in the butt. And we've been talking recently about how it's coming on fall. Family season is upon us. All of the family togetherness. And hopefully there won't be any kind of fighting. Hopefully everything will stay calm and cool and collected in your households. However, things that, you've literally seen families get into it in the office, have you not?
Oh, without question. I'd say a good 60 to 70% of what I do is truly marriage counseling.
Yeah.
And anymore, because we do, a lot of legacy planning, for the next generation or even for, great grandkids and stuff like that. It is amazing how much those things come up and people will they go off.
They will run their mouths. They will do. Listen, this story is good. Did you read this story that I sent you want to talk about?
I don't know if I did.
It's juicy. So lean in. So there was this story.
Spill the tea. Spill the tea, girl. You do it.
So there was this story, and it was on MSN.com published the story. Okay. So there was a daughter, and I guess her dad got remarried. And so he passed, and the daughter was told she's going to receive nothing after her father died because everything is going to his new wife. Cut to, daughter shows up to the attorney's office, documentation in hand showing what assets existed before and after the marriage, a signed letter explaining how her father wanted things divided, and legal authority over his financial affairs. Jon Hicks. Mm-hmm. Gauntlet falls.
For real. And the craziest thing is, growing up, my dad was a small town attorney and a small town judge.
Yeah.
And that suffices.
He's
so basically what could have been years of drawn out courtroom drama was basically done by having proper documentation. And the daughter did nothing. I mean, the whole point was the daughter, she was owed that. Her dad wanted her to have that. And so the right thing, we make the assumption the right thing in the end was done. But this is the whole point, right? So everything that we do in our office, everything comes down to how can we get to the point where we've saved enough that we can basically, quote unquote, relax or do the things that we want in retirement, hopefully have enough money for as long as we live. And then if something happens to one person in the couple, have enough for the surviving spouse to live, but then go to the next generation. So that's what we call lifestyle or life planning, right? So we want to make sure that we have the right protection of our assets, that we have the right income, that we have the right tax design, that the wealth transfer is good and we can pay for healthcare. So many people this day and age have amassed tremendous amounts of money, millions and millions, and some people tens of millions or even more dollars, and they want it to go to the right people. Because of that, for the first time in a very, very long time, I say for the first time, in the last 3 years, I've really shifted my thoughts. My dad always said, as a small town attorney, he said, trusts, they sound really sexy. They're really good to talk about at the water cooler or when you're at a dinner party. They sound good, but for most people, they're not necessarily the best thing for them because they can be expensive if you have to pay a trustee. They can stop the money from going for where the person that passed away, where they wanted it to go. It didn't actually end up going to the right people and ended up going for other things. And so that's why I was really kind of not against trusts. I was just really use a fine-tooth comb to figure out if they should require it or not.
Right.
Because of what we just said right now, because of second marriages, divorces of children, divorces of grandchildren. Over time, what we have found is there are much better ways to structure things than just a simple will. Often, correctly done trusts can actually do what we want them to do. They're not for everyone. Right. But there's not necessarily an amount of money that someone needs. I used to say, if you're under $3 million, you may or may not really even need a trust. You just want proper titling. You want a well-documented will, and you want to make sure that everything that has been expressed, better today that it's video, so they can actually see what you're doing. Of course, with AI, it's often unadmissible. But the idea is that if you can put your own handwriting on something to express why you're doing it this way, if the kids aren't having their money divided exactly equally because maybe they helped one kid more with college, the other got a scholarship, or one of them needed more money before they could get their right job. And so because of that, there's all kinds of reasons why someone would not have a perfect 50-50 divide. But the modern trusts and how they're done and how the legal world has adopted these things well, we can have living trusts, you can have irrevocable trust, all these things in different jurisdictions, which means not just the state of Kentucky, not just Texas, not just Florida, but you can use South Dakota or Wyoming or Alaska for different reasons. To look at those is tremendous.
Wow.
So one of the things I want to talk about right now for the next couple minutes that we have on the show is understanding if a trust is appropriate for you, right? Or for anyone. So it's not about the amount of money. It's, do you want to control those dollars?
Can I jump in real quick before you go into that? By the way, phone number, if you've got questions about trust, do they apply to you? 502-317-0840. You can call or text that number, 502-317-0840. I apologize. Please continue.
No. So the idea is that, again, it's not about how much money. It's, do you want or need to control that money when you're gone, right? So for a lot of folks, they will say, well, anything when I'm gone, it goes to my spouse, whether it's the person you were married with your entire life or if it's a second spouse or whatever it is. That creates a little bit of an issue, right? For the example that we just heard in the story right here, where a daughter whose father wanted her to have some money, maybe not all of it, but a portion of it, had to basically prove to the court that she was allowed and entitled and should have received that money. A trust often fixes that because we dictate what happens while we're alive. We can dictate what happens once we're gone for a surviving spouse, and we can dictate after that second person's gone where we want the money to go after that point in time, whether it goes to a charity or a church or your children or your grandchildren, or if you want to, what often we look at as generationally skip. There are ways where a lot of times, like, hey, I've given my kids everything. I educated them. I did the right thing, but I want to make sure that my grandkids are taken care of correctly, right? So that is where a lot of people will consider trust, especially if they've saved a good amount of money, millions of dollars. They want to make sure that it goes to where they want. A trust can do that. Just because you live in one state does not mean that that is the best state to administer or to deal with that trust. There are all kinds of other jurisdictions in the United States that may make one state better than another. There's no right or wrong. There's no rhyme or reason. It's just different laws in different places allow you to do different things. So even if you have a trust in the state that you live in, it may not be perfect or the best for what you want to accomplish. So this is always why it's really important. And what I have discovered over the years is most people that manage your money really don't understand your taxes. And most people that understand your taxes really don't understand trust or estate documents. And most people that are attorneys that do with trust and estate documents, they don't even always title those assets to your trust correctly. They say, well, that should be your financial guy. It is not his guy. It is not his job to tell the attorney what to do unless it's part of what they do. And most CPAs are just like, whoa, that's a legal thing or that's a finance thing.
There's a lot
of
pointing. There's a lot of fingers in the air pointing at other people.
Literally.
Which
and
is so
here's the
frustrating
point.
to the person who's the saver just standing in the middle of the finger pointers trying to get something done, John.
And that's the whole point. If you have someone very skilled at insurance, they may not understand the tax side.
Yeah.
If you have someone very skilled at drafting the trust, they may not really understand the tax portion as well as you'd like them to, or you have a real estate in a different state, right?
Yeah.
So the best thing that anyone can do is seek out a holistic fiduciary advisor who has all of those people, not in their own silos, but working together in one group. That's what we have at my firm, but we built that because of all the times I would call a client CPA and he didn't know what I was talking about. Or I would talk to the attorney and he would say, no, we've done the trust, but they didn't title any assets to the trust.
Right.
Well, that makes it worthless. The client spent tens of thousands of dollars on a trust that's worthless. Or I would call another financial institution and to say, hey, how do you have this titled? And it is not titled in the way that the client told me they wanted. So all these things, that's why we have CPAs and tax attorneys on our staff, in our office every day.
Yeah.
We don't just refer stuff out because I need them to look at it and say, hey, this is what the client wants. Does what we're saying here on the tax side, does that jive with the investment side? Hold on, but then does that jive with the insurance side? Well, then does that jive with the trust side? And again, once you see that they all are working together correctly, is that what the client still wants to do? Yes or no? And then we know the marching orders to take in that particular direction. What we have found is that very few, less than 5% of all financial institutions out there work this way. And so that's why we've adopted this philosophy, because how would you like to know that what you've done actually happens the way you want it to? This is why my dad, being a small town attorney and a judge, did not really like trusts. He saw it take over a lot of people's ideas of what they wanted to do and change it completely. He didn't like that because he watched a lot of good people not be able to get access to money because of the way the trust was done. But if you have a skilled person looking at all those various pieces, chances are you're in a much better position to understand it and make sure that it's what you need. If you need to change it, they can hopefully help you change it too, right? That's the idea. If that's what you're looking for today, give our team a call, find out. Or if you have questions about your own trust or how your CPA should be dealing with your trust or how the jurisdictions work, call our team, find out, get a free consultation, and then you can actually figure out where you go from there, whether you're already in the right spot or if a couple tweaks might save you tens of thousands of dollars or just stress and anguish in the future.
Let's begin the conversation helping you understand about your plan, your money, your future. It's retirementsolutionshow.com or just click on the links we've got posted in the show notes.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with Jon Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with John and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting retirementsolutionradio.com. Be sure to listen to John's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through J. Hagan Capital, LLC, NPN number 1882794.